Hi, Sue. It's
Hi, Victor.
great to be with you again, at least virtually.
Aha, always nice to talk to you.
Yes, and today we would like to talk, or I would like to talk, about your new book, Attachment Theory and Practice, Emotionally Focused Therapy with Individuals, Couples, and Families.
Right.
Just come out, and I think the way to start this out, I've obviously been following your work very closely over the years, and we've had the pleasure to do some videos together on you and your colleagues with EFT. And it seems to me you've gone from, developing this wonderful model of couples therapy, emotionally focused therapy, and some books and workbooks on that, and then you've kind of gradually expanded your scope to, you wrote Hold Me Tight, which was more of a self-help book for couples, how to improve their relationships using the principles you've established. You wrote Love Sense, which really looked even larger at the whole idea of love and attachment and the science behind that. And now this seems to me, at least at this point of your life, kind of your magnus opus, putting it all together and expanding emotionally focused therapy beyond couples to individuals and families. So it's quite a grand work. And so why? What inspired you to write this?
Well, I think that's a good question. It's been in my head for about a decade. And to be honest, I kept putting it off because it's kind of big in scope. It's sort of like I'm standing up and saying, I want to say something to the whole field of psychotherapy, which is, I'm best known for my work in couples therapy and for being somebody who talks all the time about adult bonding, attachment, the clinical usefulness of attachment theory, how to not just help couples be more satisfied, but how to help them build bonds that last. And I think everyone has always known, at least I hope they have, that EFT therapists also see individuals and also see families. That's always been kind of in the background, but we've never really taken that front and center. And more over the years, it's really hit me that all the things we've learned from the clinical implication of attachment science in couple therapy, we have learned so much in the last few years, and we've done more and more research projects. We have over 20 outcome studies right now. We've learned so much, and it started to really hit me that we weren't just learning about couples or how to help distressed couples. We were learning about how people work and how people change and how people grow, and the very best way to evoke somebody's core emotional dramas where they define themselves, they define how they see other people, the very best way to evoke those dramas, to help people sit in those dramas with our help, to help them regulate and be able to tolerate those dramas, and then to start to shift those dramas with new ways of experiencing emotion, regulating emotion, new ways of interacting with others. And it became incredibly clear to me that this was not about modality. This is not about whether you had one person in front of you, two people in front of you, or even a family. This was about how people work. This was about how I go in and sort of put my hands on the core organizing emotions and thoughts and moves that people make in relationships. That's what this is about. Attachment gives you a map to people's deepest longings, fears, needs, and there's only so many ways to dance in close proximity, to dance a tango, an attachment tango with someone else. And, it's taught us so much about that. So it became obvious to me that this was thing that we had here, this way of first of all, attachment science has grown over the last few years.
Let me just
adult attachment science has just grown, right?
Yeah. So let me just jump in. So if I know you have a lot to say, and it's all good. So what I hear you saying is the underlying driving principle that EFT is based on is attachment theory, bonding, relationship, and that's your core organizing principle for understanding humans.
And how we work with it, and the fact that emotion is the core organizing principle, and attachment says that, and we've implemented that in EFT. So yes, the power of emotion,
right,
to create change.
Okay. And so with emotionally focused couples therapy, both you had, I think, like almost any type of treatment or theory, you have both the underlying principle of kind of understanding of what makes humans tick, what makes them work, and where they get into trouble, and then what are the clinical implications? How do you take that underlying theory and put it into action? And I'm more familiar with the EFT in couples format, because you have very structured, steps and stages of how to apply that. How do you take those underlying principles of bonding and attachment, and how do you apply that with two people in the room? But
right.
With this book, you're saying this applies working with individuals, this applies working with families. But it would seem to me that, say with EFT couples therapy, you have some very specific ideas and techniques about working with engagement. Often usually in couples, you have a withdrawer and a pursuer, where it's different if you're working with an individual or with a family. So how have you taken the ideas of attachment, emotion, and bonding and applied them to your work with individuals and with families? That seems to me kind of the important idea of this book.
Well, if you think about individuals,
yes,
you have one person sitting in front of you in the therapy session,
right?
But as someone says, I think it's your father. Irvin Yalom says, I'm going to bastardize this quote a bit. He basically says that if you're a good therapist, you get to know the cast of characters that live in your client's head.
Yeah.
And not just in their head, but in their heart, in their emotional lives. So, when I sit and talk to a couple, I get them to look at the patterns of engagement they have between each other, and the music, the signals they send each other that cause pain or get people stuck, right? When I'm working with an individual, I do the same with families, in the dyads in families and the family as a whole. But when I'm working with an individual, I have this person sitting in front of me, but there's a whole cast of characters in this person's mind. So, somebody will be talking about the client in the book, because the book has clinical chapters and long pieces of transcript of therapy. The client in the book is talking at one time about how her ex-husband, basically told her that, it was really her fault that everything had happened and that she was so miserable and that they couldn't get back together. And then she started to say, he must be right, it is my fault. And what she does then is she shuts down and numbs out, right? And this is what she's done for 6 years. There's a pattern here. There's a dance.
Right.
The dance is not with him in the room. The dance is with her image of him telling her, you've blown it, you're failing, it's your fault. And then what she does with that is she agrees. She goes into shame and she says, it must be true, so I'm a terrible person. And then what? She just zones out. And she's been doing this for 6 years. So that's her dance. It's an internal dance, but it translates out into the world, because for the last 6 years, she's lived all by herself and become kind of a hermit and won't talk to anyone and won't actually talk to her ex-husband who wants to get back with her, right? So, so you look at that emotional drama, it's still a powerful emotional drama, The difference when you're creating new interactions is if you have a couple in a room or two family members, you say, you change the emotional music, you change the anger to somebody being able to talk about vulnerability and hurt, you change it. The father stops telling the kid what to do and turns to the kid and says, I feel like I'm losing you. And when I feel like I'm losing you, I get into a panic. And you're right, I lecture you because I don't know what to do. You're my precious son, I'm losing you. So that sort of comment can change. Sartre said emotion is a transformation of the world. That kind of comment can change a relationship and a family. It brings in a whole new symphony of emotion that changes the way people dance. But it happens again in individual therapy too. You know, I say to her, Fern, can you close your eyes? I help her talk about her pain, how nobody saw her pain, how, you know, she feels blamed by both his family and her family for messing up the marriage, right? And how then she sinks into her own feelings of being a bad person. And I talk about how alone she is in her pain and how nobody in her family ever saw her pain. That's why she left the marriage. And she still dismisses her pain. And let's listen to that pain. And I get her to close her eyes and talk to Dan, and I guide her. So instead of saying to Dan, and she's talking to him in her mind, instead of saying to Dan, I don't want to talk about this and going home, she's closing her eyes and she's having an interaction with Dan where she says, you blame me, you blame me, you blame me. And I'm small and I'm alone. And that's how it was in my marriage. I'm always the one that doesn't matter. You don't see my pain. You don't care. And even I push my pain away now. You don't see my pain. I'm scared I hurt. And she's saying this to a powerful attachment figure. And when she says it, something starts to change. She starts to put her emotions together in a new way. And even though it's a fantasy, it's an imagined encounter, it's powerful as anything. You know, she starts, I say to her, she opens her eyes, I say, what's happening for you as you say that? She says to me, she looks into my face now, and she says to me, nobody did listen to my pain. I was hurting, I was alone in these families, and nobody listened to me. I said, yes, that's right. And you're telling me now, she's doing it again. Because, you know, when she came into therapy, she says, I'm a terrible person, right? I deserve everything I got, right? So now she's looking at me and saying, yes, nobody ever listened to my pain, like my pain didn't matter. And then she weeps. And I grieve with her because that's a grieving, sad process. And the essence of attachment theory says that the key issue here is that she's been alone with her vulnerability, and we don't deal well with that. So she goes into a whole new, and we have a very systematic way of leading people into these emotions, into their core organizing emotions, into these dramas that define who they are and their relationships. We have a very key way of leading people down into new interactions and then helping them look at them in a session. We do it every session and it sort of builds, helping them look at what that says. And, you know, at the end of that session, Fern looks at me and says, maybe I don't have to go away and beat myself up. I say, oh, what do you think? Right? She says, maybe I need to tell people that my pain matters, and maybe I need to tell the judge inside me. I said, yes. And I say, how about us ending with you telling me again? Can you tell me, Sue, my pain matters? And I was hurting and alone, and that's why I left my marriage. And she does. And, you know, and when she does it, you actually see her body change. She actually sits up in the chair. So it's like this, we've been doing this for years, and it got to the point where I said, this is silliness. Why are we only talking about couples? So that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. And we have a lot to offer And EFT attachments become more refined over the years. The science of emotions become more refined. EFTs become more refined, where I think the way we talk about interventions in this book is cleaner, simpler, more elegant, easier to learn, more on target. I think, you know, it's time for us to say this. The other reason why I wrote the book is because I would get frustrated at conferences when people would stand up and say, psychotherapy is in chaos. We have 1,000 names for psychotherapy, over 400 very hard to learn, intricate manuals for people to do all these labeled therapies, therapy tribes. Every time we turn around, there's new disorders. This is nonsense. And people have said for a few years, we got to get our act together here. We got to make this a discipline. We've got to, you know, but nobody ever really comes up with how to do it. And I talk in the book about how there's been about 4 ways suggested for how to do it. And there's really only one that's ever really held water. And that is, we have to take the field of psychotherapy, individual, couple, and family, and we have to base it on the best scientific, developmental theory of personality that we've got. And there is only one candidate for that. It is attachment science. And
I'm shocked you would say that.
Yes, well, that's what, it's so obvious. It's the Holy Grail. But I think the issue is people have said that, you know, a Magna Vita says that. I mean, other people have said that. But it's no good saying to therapists, hey guys, we found the way home. Hey guys, we've got a clear, straight road. Therapy can be a safe adventure, not just for your clients, but for you. Hey guys, it's no good doing that unless you can also say, and this is what it looks like in practice. Here's how you take this amazing understanding of who we are as human beings and how we change over time, how we get stuck, how we can move and change and grow. Here's how you take it into a session and operationalize it. Here's what it looks like. And, you know, I feel like I've done this in this book. So it was a bit of a big task, but to be honest with you, I felt like I had to do it. When I started, I did think twice of just writing to Guildford and saying, no, I can't do it, and just forget it. And I did tease with it because it was so much work, but I felt like I had to do it. And of course, the minute I start writing up the clinical cases and the minute I start writing it, it takes off. I think this has so much promise. And to put on a downside, if we don't get our act together in psychotherapy and really start to sort of have a real discipline and pull together, it seems to me we'll be replaced. We'll be replaced by drugs and apps. It's already happening. And I passionately believe in how much psychotherapy has to offer people. I passionately believe in growth, you know, in that a society has to help its people grow. And, you know, so I had to write the book, bottom line, I had to write the book. And I hope that there were some lovely things said. Your father said amazing things about it, the book. I can't remember exactly, but
you have an impressive list of endorsements. My father, John Gottman, David Barlow, Steve Hayes. So people from a wide range of approaches have given.
They left off. There's a word on there. I think it says 2 words I like on the back are brilliant and wisdom. That's kind of nice. But they left the bit off that I really liked off the back. You know, I'm kind of small. You know, I always think about myself as small. That someone said, I don't think it was your dad, someone said, in this book, Johnson shows intellectual brawn. I loved that because it somehow makes me feel like, oh, wow. You know, I'm like, I got muscles or something like, you know, intellectual brawn. That's pretty good.
Brawn. Okay.
Brawn, yeah.
Okay.
The other thing the book does is it brings together me as a researcher and a theoretician and a clinician. And yeah, it's my, in a way, it's my magnum opus. It's me saying, this is what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, some people will not agree with it at all, but this is what I know.
That
So,
never stopped you.
no.
In fact, you seem to relish that sometimes.
No, I don't really mind if people disagree with me. You know, I basically believe my clients and what happens in therapy and all the people we train in EFT, who, by the way, really want, you know, they want us to say this model goes across. And of course, we'll do what we always do. Starting next year, we'll start a really good research study on EFIT, emotionally focused individual therapy. We'll do that, right? That's what we'll do, because that's what we always do. Whatever we do, we then turn around and find out if it works, do research on it, right?
Right. So you've recently relocated to the West Coast, to Vancouver.
I have. I'm sitting here looking at hummingbirds, and I had 2 huge bald eagles in my back garden 2 days ago with a large stag. I thought, this is ridiculous. This is like Disney. I don't believe this, okay? And it's warm enough to walk outside. There's thousands of snowdrops all over my beautiful new garden, which is all rocks and Gary oak trees, and it's about 5 minutes from the sea. So it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice here. Well, you know that, Victor. You're on the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, down a little south. And so what's next for you? What are you working on?
Oh, well, we're still trying to tell folks about our Hold Me Tight online course, which we've only just started to tell people about. We really want people to know about it. We think it's unique and special. So we're trying to do that, but we're not very good at marketing. Basically, I can do all kinds of things, but I basically suck at marketing. So, you know, so, but, you know, so we're doing that, and we're just keeping going. And I think for the next few years, I'm going to just focus a lot on working with individuals, because it fascinates me now. I've always done it, but writing the book has sort of opened that door again for me. So I'll do that. And I think I'd like to write a book like your dad's big in this video. Your dad wrote a brilliant book called Love's Executioner, where he talked about psychotherapy in a way that I thought was amazing. And I decided that I'd like to try and do something like that, where I talk about me doing therapy, how much I get out of it, how much I grow from it. Take 8 clients or so, talk about their stories, talk about what we can learn as therapists. I think that's what I'd like to do.
Sounds
but first of all, I'd like everyone to read this book.
All right. Well, again, the book is Attachment Theory and Practice, Emotionally Focused Therapy with Individual Couples and Families. And, you know, once you, when you're ready to, and you've coalesced more your ideas around working with individuals, I mean, this is a fantastic start. And obviously, you know, not to imply that they're not fully developed, but after it sounds like you're focusing on that now. I would love to, we've captured you on video doing couples therapy. It would be great to do a video of you working with individuals. So
we will do that. And the first video that ISEF will put out will be out in a couple of weeks of me working with an individual, working with Travis, 5 sessions with Travis. But we will do some with you too, Victor.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for taking the time today, and best of luck with this book and your other endeavors.
Lovely to talk to you, sweetie. Take care.
All right.
Bye now.